Tums is the word. I cannot even speak English today, so you will just have to speak.
We can
And
kind of
now,
do English.
what?
We can only kind of do English. I like it.
Yeah, I understand. Otherwise, we would have, of course, run this in Swedish or German, as in Gothenburg is not where you've actually stayed a couple of days. Briefly, just
briefly.
I'm gonna do this while we wait for people. I'm gonna do this COVID trick now. Get my computer up, my laptop. It's a classic. I'm not that prepped as you are in this live show. We actually have our first live show on Friday.
Congratulations. What's the topic?
The topic is what sales reps need to change to be successful in 2023. Ooh. It's going to be
a 10-hour one, or is that just a half an hour? Because that's a big list.
Yeah. But that is just the intro, and then we're going to portion it like in small. We're going to have it's me and my colleague and friend Sarah. She's the VP of Sales in Plema, an IT software company. So we've talked about it for so long, and now we just have to try to see.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I've seen yours, so it's high stakes. But yeah, you got to.
If you would have saw how it started, definitely wasn't high stakes.
Yeah,
we got 3 people.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say though that this. Hello, everyone. Please write hi in the chat, and we'll know you're here, because I know this list isn't really accurate. I've noticed, so you don't see all people coming in, unfortunately. But we'll give you another minute, I guess, to let people in, and then just so you know, guys, this will be a recorded webinar and will be put on demand on our webpage as well.
Great.
Amazing.
Yeah. And hopefully it will be used a lot in our, sales content work, I hope.
I think it makes sense for what you guys do to go and have a strong indirect approach, or a strong lead gen approach, brings them to the website, and then you get additional information for contacts, and boom.
Yeah, exactly. And we also try to work our HubSpot machine a bit better. I am an ex-HubSpot consultant, so I'm a nerd, but we are, as a company, new in the tool. So it takes a while to get that machine running, I must admit.
Yes,
I'm glad I'm not onboarding us. A lot of people have just worked with outbound, phone calls and stuff. So it's a mix, I would say. But yeah, should we start? And by the way, this is always me, just so you know. The audience probably already knows that I do all this small talk in the beginning just to let people in. But yeah, welcome to the show. Should I say that? Find the right leads in 2023. And I have 2 excellent guests. I'm going to see if I can get the panel view here. There you go. Who are you guys?
Well, thanks, everyone. Good morning. It's dangerous to ask who we are. I'm a legitimate businessman. No, I'm Morgan Smith. I am a managing director at Aligned and co-host of the B2B Power Hour with this wondrous man, Nicholas Thickett. We talk a lot about B2B go-to-market, what sellers need to do, especially in modern sales landscape, to actually attract and close leads. And overall, we try and have a little bit of fun, even though we're not serious. We'll have fun today, even though we have some serious content.
Yeah, I love your shows, by the way. I've been watching a lot of them. So please do, audience, please look at the live shows, and then also check in the B2B Power Hour podcast, because you can get a lot of knowledge and insights from that one. It's a super duper bank of knowledge. Okay, Nicholas, who are you?
Yeah, I was an enterprise seller. I actually worked in investment banking, working on deals from 40 to almost 300 million. And it really changed the way I look at sales. And it was really interesting because after I left that job, And a few jobs down the road, I met Morgan in a copywriting course. And what I realized is that as sellers, we sell ourselves short all the time. And we'll get to talk about it a little bit today. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Who has the upper hand? Sellers or marketers? Throw in the comments. Curious how you guys weigh in before we go and start this conversation.
Yeah, that's a good one. And also, so everyone knows, we will be recording this and it will be put on our website on demand. If there's anyone you think you should watch this and you think it's valuable content, then please go share it. You can put in questions as long as we are going for this hour, and we will try to answer them as we go. I'm Tess, country lead for Sweden at Lido, and I'm this hopeless hybrid between sales and marketing. I've never really chosen side. I'm an educated journalist. I was supposed to be a journalist, but I realized it would be stupid to just sit and write because I couldn't do that. I need to speak. So then I went into marketing studies and then a lot of rhetorics and stuff. And then I tried to find a job in communication and ended up in sales. And so that's my story, actually. And I wasn't that popular 10 years ago when I didn't want to choose side. Now I'm this skyrocketing talent that everyone wants. Yeah. No, not really, but if you want me.
I think so. We'll talk a little bit about it today too. Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of things has changed, and although I think because I come from a HubSpot agency before Lido, I think we've been moving way too slow, and I think in US you've come so much further on this journey. So it would be interesting to hear a little bit about that and the way you work and some tips and tricks. Yeah.
Do you want me to kick us off then for the rest of the hour?
Yeah, please do. Go ahead.
I can do it.
Rock on.
Sounds good. Well, we are extremely biased towards people using chat. And as you have questions, as you have comments, drop it in chat. If you have a joke to drop, if you think my glasses are not cool at all, please tell me. Like, I'll take them off. Please use chat. We want to hear from you today. Since we can't see you or hear your audio or commentary, we only have chat. So what we're talking about today is finding the right leads in 2023. And as has been hinted so far, the landscape has changed, right? B2B is not the same across multiple different markets in EMEA, in North America, in Latin America, than it was pre-COVID. And most of that shift happens because buyers are more digital friendly. Buyers are more willing to do their own research. And also buyers are now overwhelmed with the amount of information that is out there at their fingertips, both overwhelmed in their inbox, being the kinds of cold outreach that they're getting from sellers and the kinds of information that's at their disposal. I mean, any topic under the sun, you can Google and you can get at least 20 SEO optimized introductions to that topic. So what we're talking about today is how to find the right leads in 2023, building targeted lists. And we have a particular emphasis on social because buyers, we've noticed through ruthless experimentation and work with our own clients, that social is a very unique forum. Social platforms like LinkedIn, sometimes Slack communities, other channels like Twitter or Reddit, certainly depending upon your audience and your region, are huge, huge opportunities to capitalize on. However, they have their own rules of the game. They're like calling has their own rules, like email nurture sequences have their own rules, like cold email has its own rules. Social also has its own rules. So what Nick and I are going to go through today is finding those leads and then how you actually reach them. And what do you say? What's the game plan to get in front of those leads, book meetings, and get some pipeline generated? So Nick, where would you like to begin?
So I think it's only, it's important for us to go and start with the big statement. Oh, am I cutting in and out?
Just a tad. But keep on going. We'll see how it goes.
the panic in your eyes. Don't worry. Just keep us posted.
I had good internet when we started. Silly. So I'm going to start with a big statement. So most people are expecting us to go and talk about how to go direct, best messaging sequences, how to go and do triggers. But that's actually not what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to start with a big statement. Indirect is the fastest way to prospect, hands down. No questions asked.
So what's indirect?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I am cutting out. Sorry, guys. Hopefully we'll be okay for the rest of the show. But yeah, so a lot of the time when we go in, I always taught, okay, how do we go and call this person? How do we go and send an email? What is the best way to get in front of them? How do we go right after senior leadership and go and get them on the phone, book that meeting and drive that forward? And in this process, I realized that the volume skyrocketed. And Morgan has called this mental spam filters or the brick wall. And so what happens, even if you have the most intelligent messaging you possibly could have that is just so dialed in, people are going to, as it just gets caught in the spam filter. And so what we've learned going through this process is that, yes, triggers and just-in-time prospecting works, but only if you can get in touch with them. But this is why we love social selling. So you're probably thinking social selling, that's just posting content, right? Right? What do you guys think? Is social selling more than just posting content? Because this might be a surprise.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah, this is Swedish people, so don't count on that many. I'm kidding. But
I know.
Yeah.
Us Americans and Canadians are so, rah, and it's okay.
Yeah. No, but I would say in Sweden, we're still pushing a lot of emails, and we tried, I don't know how many emails I get in my, LinkedIn account, but I am so fed up with this super bad approaches and like, hi, they're bad. That's super bad, and they're static. And actually, just a week ago, I got 2 on the same day from the same company, and it was a competitor. So we're not really doing our homework there either. Like, you have to check at least
and
where I work.
You know what's amazing in our efforts and our experience, what Nick was saying is that even if you dialed in your InMails and you had the best messaging ever and you targeted the right people and you did all of your homework, it's actually not a big guarantee you're going to get a lot of results anymore. And part of that is because by only, what's the stat that everybody throws around? 3% of buyers are in market at any one time. So if you had a list of 100 names, even if you sent it to all 100, chances are only 3 might be interested. Yeah. The other problem is that buyers like yourself are overwhelmed with all of these InMails or all of these emails coming in. And most people, in our experience, instead of going through and clicking through saying, is this for me? Is this for me? Is this for me? They just ignore it all. They just say,
that's what I do. I'm sorry, but I totally erase like 9 out of, I'm sorry, all you sales people out there, but you got to ramp it up, because I kind of go on the rate button on 9 out of 10. Like, if it's actually, it might be 10 out of 10. That's how bad it is. But no, but you're right. And I think this is going to be even more important because we are a conversion platform. Leader works with conversion. We activate and engage people on their website. The thing is, that's the same thing. It's dialogue and interaction, because the forums doesn't work anymore, because we've kind of, I've been at HubSpot, so I gotta say there was a gold era there. It worked perfectly fine. Because no one had any information to get. That was the only way to get the information. It was to kind of download the content. But we're smarter now, and I think that also push it over to the emails. And we're smarter than that. I'm not going to fall for your cheap email that has no accuracy or timing at all.
So Nick, if social selling is not just content, what is this like indirect idea? Instead of going direct, what's this indirect that sellers should be using?
Yeah, and so you guys kind of framed it already. Is what's happened is the seller is no longer anonymous. And this is really critical in sales because, like we just talked about, there's an abundance of information. Like whatever we talk about, the inbound movement for that HubSpot started in 2014. We think of like the trends going into 2017 of actually people using social and doing more inbound process. And then we think of 2019 with COVID and just the abundance and the automation and just the push of garbage that now people have just cut off and they're not open. So now we think of, we're a face, but there's so much. So what are people craving? They're craving a source they can trust. And because you're not anonymous, they want to know that you're credible and that they can trust you. And if you're not those two things, they don't want to see you in their inbox. This is the danger that we live in today. And so we think of social selling, like we started out with, people think post content. But what we realize is it's all about facilitating conversations where people are. And so posting content is actually the last thing you should do.
Actually, funny that you mentioned this trust thing, because I had a client meeting today where he actually said, I took over that client from one of our sales reps because she left us. And then we had a really good conversation. And then he says in the end, like, yeah, just one thing. I don't actually, she went out contacting other people in the company, and I don't like that. Like I am, and then he went on, the usually triangulation works, but in this case, he didn't like it. And he actually said that, I love your platform, but when she did this, actually, I end up liking your platform a bit less because, just because you buy people, like I buy you, and I kind of, if I don't like you, if I have an issue with you, it will end up hurting the whole sales process, basically.
Well, you take that, and you think of your friends that you just love to go out with, but you would never take professional advice.
Yeah.
That's most sellers. They're, charismatic, they're energetic, but they don't show confidence in their domain knowledge. All they show is confidence in their product. And their overconfidence, it actually kills their credibility because they don't actually take into account what their competitors are doing and where they stand out. And this is so dangerous. We see this in messaging all the time. We are simply the best. Why should you buy us? Because we are the best. Compared to what? Like, it sounds so naive and it's just garbage. And this is the epidemic that we're living in. And so what we're actually saying, and what we realize by, let's call it happy accident, is that people are out there talking. There are people that are engaging, but instead of people doing that, they're defaulting to what we did 10, 20, 30 years ago, going direct instead of meeting people where they're at. And you guys have probably heard the saying, like, meet people where they're at instead of trying to drag them to where you want them to be, that change management portion. And so we think, where are the conversations happening right now on social? We found that there's two really good opportunities that get missed by most people. And that's influencers and social listening. And why we pick those two is influencers already have trust and credibility in the market. So whether it's your top prospects, the leaders at those companies, the main role that your product actually influences their day-to-day jobs to be done, they are there listening, because what people crave the most right now, stuck in whether it's in their home offices or whatever, is they're trying to find sources that give them industry updates and professional development, really focused skill development for their role, not generic garbage like we talked about with some of the inbound. Those frameworks were so hard to apply because they were too generic. So people are trying to find people that did their specific job and can give them insight so they can learn from their experience. And the great thing is they're on LinkedIn. And so, Morgan, when you're trying to find an influencer, what does it not look like? Because I think this is another thing that we made this huge mistake when we first started, is we were going after the wrong influencers.
And so part of what we're folding in here, I just wanted to take a meta level 1 second, is like finding the right leads. Is we're finding the active buyers, right? We're finding the active personas on these platforms that you can reach with the right approach. So at a tactical level, what we started with was scrolling the feed. And scrolling the feed is not all that useful. finding influencers who are popular for their own sake actually doesn't mean there's any value to be had there, right? No. When we use the term influencer, we're not thinking about the 100,000 plus follower accounts. Those can apply sometimes, but we've actually found them not to be super useful for the strategy or the play that we're going to lay out for you in a second. When we talk about influencers, we're mostly speaking about accounts that have 5,000 to 25,000 followers on LinkedIn. And that's because they have a little micro community, right? They have a little venue of people who really trust this person, who show up in the comments or who always like their content. And anytime that influencer posts, these people follow them. So scoring the feed, not super useful. But what is super useful is if you know of, let's say, 10 leads that you want to go after, and this takes only a little bit of time, but if you have 10 prospects that you know are active on LinkedIn, you pull up their profile, and then you scroll down their profile and you click to their activity feed. So it's usually like below their posts or their comments. But instead of looking at what they're posting, you look at who are they liking and who are they commenting on. And so you scroll their activity feed. So I could pull up my account and you would see me liking and commenting on somebody like
Now we
Leslie
don't hear you. That
Me?
much the volume is really low.
Oh,
I don't know
weird.
what happened. No,
Did it
it's
just
like you really
randomly
strange.
shift? That's extremely strange. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
The volume
your
just
gain's
went
super
down.
low.
Huh, it just like shifted suddenly?
Yeah.
Okay, how about now?
There you go. No?
It's
No?
maybe
Maybe is it?
Yeah.
Are we?
Go ahead.
Okay, we're okay. Okay,
yeah, I think so.
Apologies, everybody. So
Yeah.
You're looking at somebody's profile, and then you're pulling up their activity feed and seeing who they're liking and who they're commenting on. So you would see on my profile, I like and comment on Leslie Venetz, for example, who's a former VP of sales, or a number of other influencers who are active on the platform. And you create a short list. And if you do this across 10 different prospects in the same industry or who have the same role, like I wouldn't do 10 prospects with all different kinds of roles, like a director of finance and then a sales manager. And then, right. Yeah. You want the 10 sales managers, or you want the 10 marketing automation people, or the same sort of functions, and see who they follow. Then you can leverage who they pay attention to get in front of not just those 10 prospects, but a lot of other people who also share those job titles and functions. And Nick, how do you get in front of them? What do you actually do? What's this indirect method?
So the first thing is that you just comment. And so we'll get into a little bit later some of the frameworks we use for commenting to leave a nice, thoughtful piece, but it shouldn't stop there. This is where we evolved from this process. Is we used to just stop at that first comment. But whether you're doing market research or you're trying to understand the new role that you're in or who you're selling to, is go through the comments. And what you're looking for is people in the roles that you want to sell to. And you're trying to understand, why are they commenting? What about this post was interesting to them? And you're trying to understand how they view the world so that you can start a conversation or even post your own content eventually. And so go through it, find a couple, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 5, and comment. And how I compare this is if somebody's giving a keynote speech and they're talking in an auditorium with, say, 1,000 people. Well, that commenter just stood up in the Q&A period and asked their question. Where are all the eyes when that person asks the question? Well, it's on them. Especially if it's a very thoughtful, meaningful question. And we know from high school and back in our elementary school days that a lot of time we have questions deep down. We're not comfortable to ask because we don't want to admit that we don't know. So when somebody finally asks that question, we lean in because we really want the answer. And so what you'll find is you'll get this surge of people looking at your profile, get the surge of people trying to connect with you because you now have a common interest, whether it's professional development or just topics that you're talking about. They'll come naturally to you And if you keep that conversation going and they see you speaking with that keynote speaker, or they see you having good conversations in the comments, not selling, you become a magnet. And the thing is, LinkedIn and many other platforms love that. That is engagement. That's what they thrive on. So what do? They reward you by spreading it like wildfire. So not only do you get access to the entire keynote speaker's audience, but everybody in the audience that comments on that as well, you get access to their audience going forward in that post. So think about that. If you have 100 people and you're just one and 100 see it, well, if each one of those other people have 50, think of how this magnifies so quickly. So you don't need to do a lot. You just have to be very strategic. So what you want to do is you only want to find 3 to 5. If you want to go and kind of cheat this process just to get started, is go look at who's speaking at conferences in your industry vertical and tailor their talk track to that role. 3 to 5. You'll find that there's a lot of people, especially like authors and that'll post and ghost. They're not the right people. They're not the ones that have that community in the comments. Find people with 50 plus comments that they're really diving into the information. Those are who we want to go and deal with. And then, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify the technical side of this, as we've all seen on LinkedIn. Oh, Morgan Smith commented on this post. Morgan Smith liked this comment. Morgan Smith liked Nicholas Thickett's comment. LinkedIn promotes this sort of engagement in feed, which is how one little comment, aside from getting in front of the eyeballs of people who manually scroll, automatically gets promoted to a larger second and third degree audience inside the platform, which is why engagement is so valuable. It's not just about engaging with the influencer, the speaker from the stage, nor is it just engaging with the person who already posted a comment. It's also getting in front of a lot of other eyeballs in the auditorium who are viewing the same content that LinkedIn naturally promotes to them. It is,
and I think,
without a doubt, outsized leverage. Yeah.
I think it must be, I don't know, US is ahead of us, of course, in Nordics, but I think here, I bet it's like below 10% of the sales reps do this.
Well, it's different than what we were taught. It was different when I was taught. I was a hunter. You eat what you kill. You have to go out and get that, go out into the wilderness, find that deer, get it, bring it back home. And that's what, if you don't get anything, that's it. And so delaying that gratification is unnatural for sales.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we sell ourselves short because we default to one-on-one. But the beauty of all this process is what we're doing is we're winning that one-on-one, which we're good at, but it's going one to many at the same time. And so that is why it is so powerful to live in the comments. And I will tell you, it doesn't take long. It's consistency that really matters. And so this play is 30 minutes a day. First thing in the morning, that is it. It's done. 30 minutes, 3 to 5 influencers. What you're trying to do is find influencers that'll fill that 30 minutes, and not just a little less than 30 minutes, but just a little bit more. So there's always extra, because if you have time in the day, go back. Continue those conversations to keep it going, but time block. Don't live on LinkedIn. Let it have time to grow like a plant, and then come back to harvest later. Now,
because I think that's one of the most common mistakes that we're supposed to be on LinkedIn, so we try to, be there and as you say, scroll a bit and then send out a couple of messages. Makes and then hopefully and then connect with some people, and then hopefully something will happen, but it won't happen. So
no, and that's it. And when we think of change management, because right now it's the hardest time it's ever been to buy, because what happened previously is we were that single source of information as sellers. And then, as you said earlier, inbound came in, marketers had a voice, and people started listening. That was short-lived. No, just kidding. And then sellers are now kind of picking up the reign, right? And so what is change management? And this actually leads into our second point. But change management is why change, why now, and why you? And if you think of the list, your account list or that lead list that you have sitting there waiting for you to start working, well, I guess you guys are at the end of your day, but when you're whoever's listening to this, think about that list. Why are they on the list? What I realized when I was going through the sales process, like going through my own professional development and diving into this, is I didn't have a good reason to have them on the list. They were just good logos to have on my website, which meant that my context for reaching out was selfish. But when I changed the way that what that context was for reaching out, and it was about them, that's kind of that just-in-time prospecting, or like what you guys do with your website traffic, is understanding the context in which they're looking at your website to see what they're looking to learn or what they're looking to fix. Or more importantly, what problem they're looking to understand. And that changes the entire context, which leads into the problem-aware poster. So what this reminds me of is people will post on LinkedIn about their problems or things they're seeking to understand or get better at. So I know there's different traditions all over the world, but I'm sure we can all say that we go and have a beer and complain about our day. Right? Yeah, fair. So
some variation of that, yeah.
I was about to have a beer now, actually. I was like, oh no, it might be too early.
Depends on who. I don't know. I'm okay with a beer. I love beer.
Yeah.
But
Me
but
too.
we think of those conversations, right? Of like, and think about this. Are the people just complaining because they need to complain and someone to listen? Or are people sharing their frustration in order to better understand what the hell is going on? And that was what completely changed the way I looked at social listening. And so social listening is actually searching for keywords to find the conversations as they're happening. I'll give you an example of what this looks like in real life. So say you're at a coffee shop and we're not trying to eavesdrop, but somebody says something, get happy ears, and you're listening. And so hopefully it's not too personal, but it's something about professional development, something about going on in their day, something about their role that you know a lot about or are very interested in. So you join their conversation with a really insightful remark. What normally happens in that moment? Do they chase you away? Do they tell you that they're not interested? No, they lean in. And either they invite you into the conversation or they start asking you deeper questions because you have knowledge or experience that they don't, that they want. And that is happening on LinkedIn, on Reddit, on YouTube, on TikTok, these places where people are sharing their feelings and what they're seeking to learn that maybe they don't understand. Just as sellers, we need to have an intelligent way of tapping into that so that we can leverage it to do good work. And so on LinkedIn, this can look like going into the search bar and searching hashtags, or you could do like a Boolean search and you put the quotation marks around it and you could do like social selling. Or one of the things I really love to do is think of how people would complain about their process if it wasn't working. So say I was trying to target SDRs to go and help them embrace social selling. What if I search for, I hate cold calling? Everybody that's posting about how they hate cold calling. And I join that conversation. But see, because they're a problem-aware poster, they already know that it's not working, or they're frustrated with the fact they're not getting the results they think they deserve.
Yeah.
But they don't know an alternative. So you can join in those conversations to change the way they view the world in order to go and change the way they work. And so the hardest part about sales is first you must change their point of view in order for them to be willing to unlearn the habit that they've called their default setting.
And just to dogpile on this for a second, the idea on social listening, which is just using search or some sort of keyword query on the platform, is so many buyers, so many prospects we reach, part of their mental spam filter is they don't know why we're reaching out in the first place.
No.
They don't they're like, why are you talking to me? What reason do you have? Like what you're talking about your emails earlier. Why are you reaching out to me? This doesn't make any sense.
That's me.
It's me too. I think we all get emails.
No, like thank you. Bye.
Using social listening allows us not to find people who are necessarily in market, not people who are receptive to some direct message or a pitch, but to find people who are at the base level, aware they have a problem that we might be able to help them solve. And it's always going to be a small chunk of people, right? We're finding very narrow lists in our big ocean that we could target. We're finding very narrow lists of people who are active on these platforms who we can start a conversation. Now, the thing is, what we haven't outlined so far, Nick, what do you do when you find a great comment on an influencer's post, or you find somebody who's just said, oh God, I hate cold calling? What does that comment look like? What should that look like to get a meaningful conversation going digitally?
The $1 million question. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. So me and Morgan started testing this. We were trying to figure out what the heck could go and keep that conversation going, because it is unnatural. And we wanted to have cues or frameworks that would just make it easy to get started. And so we came down to 4. Insight, curiosity, tagging an expert, and humor. Humor was always my go-to, but sarcasm and text is a bit tough without GIFs or any other way to show that you're being silly, or emojis. Curiosity is one of the most powerful, underused reasons to reach out. So I'll give an example of how I use this, actually using something outside of LinkedIn. And so I was just searching on Google. So I was social listening, but on a bigger scale. I was using Google to find content. And I found an HBR article, Harvard Business Review, that was so dialed in to customer analytics and insights that it was perfect. But the irony was, as I was reading through this, is it was all about ERP implementation. So how they were treating customers after they got them. And so I was curious. My curiosity light went on, that little light bulb. And what I've learned is to lean into the light bulb. When you have something that's a burning question you just need to ask. So I reached out to the VP of digital media at Adobe and asked. So you've done all this great insight work, building on this ERP and all this, and it's completely changed the way that you're, managing churn and growing accounts. But how has it changed the way you sell? And
great question.
I got a really funny response back. She went, "It hasn't," because they had it all siloed to just how they were doing all of their ongoing experience, but it didn't change the way the sellers were interacting with prospective buyers. But see, by just seeing something interesting and you lead into that curiosity, you can go and use that curiosity as context and reference where that curiosity began. Podcasts, big articles in top. So like whatever your industry is or that specific role, where are they going for information? Go read what they're reading and lean into that curiosity and talk to the authors. It really is that simple.
And this is why the comment that's like, great post, really liked it, isn't all that useful. Because while that may be true, while you may have enjoyed the post and while it may have been a great post, the point is not to comment. The point is to start a conversation. So one of my favorites is, if I enjoyed the post, I would say, Nick, this post really resonated with me. And I would call out a specific thing if I was replying to an influencer, for example. Your insight around X is so true. One question that popped into mind is, and then I would ask the question and I would try to get a conversation going. And this is why when scrolling through comments or finding posts using social listening, we can take the juicy part of the comment and extend it with just a little bit of curiosity and open up a conversation. I also default to humor sometimes in these instances, but I'll be honest with you. My favorite is the tag team, and then I'll let Nick, you finish off with the insight comment. The tag team is really, really powerful when you're tagging in somebody not from your company. So the default, it's fine to tag in somebody from your company. Nick and I work together, and so we tag in each other a lot for a conversation when it's appropriate. But as you get more comfortable using social to get in front of prospects, to find these right leads and to start conversations, chances are you're going to make a few friends along the way, or that's the hope. You might have some conversations with people that ask an interesting question in your DM, or you had one conversation in the comments that went nowhere, but you kind of had a good relationship with them. And then you find another conversation that's very similar vein. Guess what I'll do? I'll just tag them in. I won't do this a lot. Like I would never tag in somebody multiple times a day. That's very abusive, right? Their notifications.
Yeah, I see that.
Blow up.
It's like calmed down now, but for a period of time, like at least last year, it was a massive tag.
And that was the wrong. And that was the wrong context. All they wanted was attention.
Because the thing is, when people tag me in stuff that I just to get my, network involved and get their algorithm to get the algorithm working, I just get pissed off. I just whatever. I don't want to. Yeah, but I don't want to ask. Why did you tag me? I don't have anything to do with this. You just want my help to spread this article. Go
genuinely.
Away.
And that's why the tag team is very curated and focused. But when you do it right, and even more dangerously, don't abuse this one either. I've tagged in prospects onto comments before. So instead of people who I've just I'll have a call with a prospect, we'll talk about X. I find a post natively on social after I've connected with them on LinkedIn, and I'll tag them in saying, hey, Nick, saw this article and it reminded me of our conversation yesterday. What do you think? Or some sort of high-level generic question to keep that conversation and relationship going. It's one of these things that we're just sort of building up these dominoes. So that's the tag team. But what's this insight comment, Nick?
One thing I'll just say is, I keep a cheat sheet of the people I trust for certain topics.
Smart.
So it's like LinkedIn content, YouTube, you take your pick, psychology, behavioral economics, whatever it is that you're genuinely interested in, keep a cheat sheet of who that person is and maintain a relationship. And so what I'll do is when something comes up that's a really interesting question or a really interesting topic that I don't know enough about to intelligently respond, but I want to know too, going back and leaning into that curiosity, I'll be like, this is such an interesting topic, and now I need to know. So my go-to source is tag, hey, when you look at this, and then you go and articulate your question to guide them into that conversation so that they don't have to read that full article or that full post. And now you're having that dynamic discussion. So what I'll do sometimes if it gets personal, I switch it to all of us in the DMs, and now we have a DM conversation, group conversation about that. So now think about that. If you're taking a lead, you're actually starting discovery with a subject matter expert in your group. Boom.
That's mind-boggling.
It's one of my favorites.
Anyways.
But it's super. I think for the Swedish market or the Nordics in general, I think we're still in we think the old way could work, but we kind of realize it doesn't. But most salespeople haven't, moved on, transformed into this, smarter LinkedIn approach. So super good. This is all of you that is listening, spread the word, because I would our sales rep would benefit from this. I can tell you that. I need to do this.
And
it works.
Go ahead.
It's
Nick.
fun. Go ahead, Morgan.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna close out because then we have one last segment before time runs out today. So and I'll just take this really quick, Nick, which is the insight comment. And it's sort of an extension of everything we've talked about so far, which is what's something insightful you could add to the conversation. And this is where don't pitch, please. If somebody's complaining about marketing automation, don't hop into their comments and be like, oh, we can help with that. Here, check out our website. Like, that is not the place to do it. Here's the thing. People do it because 1 in 100 times it works, and so they think it works.
But does it really?
it burns 99 of 100 people.
Yeah.
And so the loss that you get from that approach is way more severe than just saying, here's an example of how I might do that instead, which is, let's say my marketing team just put out a really useful or interesting resource on marketing automation. And somebody, I'm using social listening, is complaining about how to get all of their workflows to match. Instead of just taking, what most people would do is just take the article, go to the comment, and paste in the article and say, hey, we just published this, you should check it out. It's like, come on, guys. What instead I would do is I would pull a very specific quote from that article, and then I'd go back to the comment and say, hey, we just published this recently, paste in the quote and say, what do you think? Extend the curiosity, or position it as an insight that you can add to the conversation, where you're getting them to think about their problem differently. They're complaining about workflows. Hey, did you know that actually like 62% of companies that struggle with workflows really actually struggle with X? That's from the article. That's a way to add insight in the comments. The reason we don't start with that, the reason even though we listed it first but mentioned it last, is that it requires a certain degree of domain knowledge and a certain degree of expertise that in our experience, most sales teams don't have. So it's much better to rely.
Not. We should be there now. That's what I talked about in the beginning. Like, I think this has been moving so slow. This whole transformation, it should have been, done by now. But I think still we haven't realized that we have to be like the expert out there, and that we're really the only source for knowledge, and we're still trying to just sell.
And that's why it's much easier to start with curiosity, to start with humor, to start with a tag team, instead of starting with insight. Over time, you might have a certain perspective or point of view that you could add to the conversation that makes it meaningful. But until you feel comfortable doing that, rely on the other ones. It's okay. You don't have to have an insight. Nick knows this. I think I literally spent 3 months only commenting jokes or questions. That was it. That's all I did for 90 days. And it worked. Amazing. It worked great. Yeah. I didn't add anything useful to the conversation. I just kept on asking questions.
Well, you made a lot of friends.
Made a lot of friends, warmed up a lot of prospects. There was a lot of interesting sales conversations that came out of it. It works. So you don't have to always just come in with the banger of a comment that changes everybo's mind.
Because again, they buy you. Like in the end, like, oh, this is a funny guy. I like his humor, but I like his humor, and he seems like a nice guy. I'm gonna listen to him, and then continues from there.
I wanted to throw in one hack that I found when we're first starting in a new role or in a new industry. We have a huge advantage being new because we have our mind is fresh and green. So as we're reading, if you find something that just hits a light bulb and you're like, wow, that's really interesting, and you lean into it and you want to read more, copy and paste that into a note.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I have a cheat sheet of interesting insights from articles that I'll use for my social listening to guide, that I'll actually find ways to validate that point to see if others agree with me. So going back to the one-on-one is I'll validate that in a comment. And then what I'll do is if it really stands out and really gets traction, then I turn it into content. So if you're scared to write, validate in the comments where the conversation is already happening. And now you can actually tag that person in and say, thank you for, you had this great post on X, and you can even now carry that forward. But I bet the people that are still here are asking the biggest question of them all. What do you think the biggest question is, Morgan? What would be on your mind as a seller?
I would usually say, wow, this sounds great, but I have quota to hit. So how can I actually like book a meeting off of this or close a deal?
Amen. So let's dive into that quickly. There's 4 rules that make this work. That's it. 4. Rule of 3, vampire sales, the flip, and the 15-minute rule. So
rule of 3 is great. I will so the rule of 3 is, if you're commenting on somebody, you want 3 round trips meaning Nick comments. So Nick posted the original. So I reply, he replies to me. That's 1 round trip. I reply, he replies to me. That's 2 round trips. I reply, he replies to me. That's 3 round trips. By that point, once you hit the rule of 3, send the connection request. Now you have 2 options there. You can send the connection request blankly if you think the conversation's kind of done and there's nothing else to say. Or you can send the connection request with a little message. And that message should continue on the conversation that you are having in the comments. And now you've transitioned from the comments to direct messages. You can ask things that are more personal or more confidential that you probably wouldn't be commenting in the first place. And you can continue that conversation over the DMs. The reason it's the rule of 3, this comes from hundreds of tests on our end, is, and not just our own, but also the sales teams that we've worked with, is when somebody hits that rule of 3, there's enough credibility and enough personality that somebody 98% of the time will accept the blank one. So if you add a personalized message, it's basically 100% because they want to continue the conversation. So it's just momentum building. So that's the rule of 3. Nick, vampire sales?
This is my favorite one. So in folklore, vampires weren't allowed to enter your home unless they were invited. So in a sales context, don't pitch unless you're invited. Because what happens?
You hear that, everyone? Just
vampire sales. It seems super counterintuitive that it would work, but it works a lot faster than you think. And so what actually happens is you're trying to dive deeper into that conversation to hit on something, a problem worth solving, but this actually leads into the next point. So when you're talking about a problem or you're having just a conversation going from comments to DMs, there needs to be a flip. So the flip is when you go from a seller to a practitioner. And so what that means is you are that trusted source of information that they want to talk to. And so I actually did a win-loss analysis on networking many years ago. I won't say how long. And I realized that the deals I actually got from networking, they always started every single time without doubt is, so what do you do? Because we'd had a great conversation diving deeper. And then it would always lead to the same point. So what do you do? But on LinkedIn, because they have access to your profile and you can control that narrative, they'll either go and ask you, so what do you do? Or they'll have already reviewed it and ask you a deeper question. And so what happens is you get deeper and deeper. The flip happens. They see you as a source of knowledge they can trust, that they look to you for that information. And they'll get to a point where it's so deep down that it doesn't make sense to answer it in a DM. So what do? Hey, actually, this is like exactly what I've been looking to learn, or, something of this variation. Could we book a 30-minute meeting to dive into this a little bit deeper? Would that be okay? And
yes, please.
Right.
The thing that was crazy about this, because it is so uncommon to use the rule of 3, it is so uncommon to use vampire sales, waiting for that flip. I went and actually tracked with a timer. And every time I was commenting or sending a DM, I actually pressed the button to go and keep adding time to see my input time, how long it took on average for people to book a meeting with me. What's your guess?
I know the answer to this, so.
And
it fell into a 98% of the time. So it was ridiculously high.
Oh. Does anyone want to guess on this one? It's totally quiet in the comments today. I usually get a lot of questions, but I guess you're super good and accurate and clear in everything you say. So we don't get any.
So how long did it take, Nick?
12 to 15 minutes.
What?
So 98% of the time following this process, as we've articulated, and I'll say it is battle tested because I have been in LinkedIn jail enough times to go and say that this is by far the best way to do it. But it was 12 to 15 minutes. Do you know what the most interesting thing was? Is outside of that 2%, I would assume that it would have come from follow-ups, knowing being a seller. It wasn't. Guess what it was?
This is my favorite
content.
Story. It was content.
So what happens when you're in the DMs with somebody on LinkedIn? It signals to LinkedIn that you either have a relationship or they're interested in talking to you.
Mm.
And so the people that circled around and either reignited the conversation or asked for a meeting was because we were talking, it prioritized my content in their feed. And because I was running a content nurture instead of an email nurture, I was talking about the problems that they didn't understand. I was talking about the industry related news that they wanted and stuff that applied to their role. So they were constantly seeing these updates. And then all of a sudden it got to a point where they're like, that's it. That was that accumulated knowledge was enough. And so they circled back to me and said, hey, it's time for us to talk. So 15 minutes of investment max is your cutoff. And then content does the rest. Mind blowing.
It is. And because it's counterintuitive to the way we learned, to the way most sellers learn sales.
And that's probably the biggest challenge here, that everyone says, and like, shit, how am I supposed to, get this done?
So genuinely, just to start, set aside 30 minutes in your day and find your influencers and find some keywords that produce posts and produce comments with, or posts with comments that are interesting to engage with and to have conversations with your ICP buyers. We started this webinar talking about finding the right leads. Well, the truth is the ocean is extremely large anymore, and buyers are extremely overwhelmed with the amount of information and the amount of people that they're supposed to pay attention to. So showing up in the places where they go to learn and to be inspired and to engage and to grow professionally means you're building credibility for yourself. You're finding the conversations that they naturally pay attention to, the voices that they want to follow, those influencers, or you're finding the people who are already complaining about those problems. And then you're warming them up. 4 different kinds of comments: insightful ones, curious ones, tag team ones, or humorous ones. And you're obeying the rule of 3, vampire sales. You're watching for the flip. And that 15-minute rule keeps you honest in the amount of time you're investing in the platform. If you follow this process, the thing that we see time and again, screw follower count. You don't need, we had a director of sales development, I think, generate something like an obscene amount of inbound traffic. I think it was like 60 inbound leads and 3 closed-won deals in 30 days or something like this.
800 followers.
Yeah.
And now he's more.
Followers.
But he was sub 1,000.
I actually think this is the only, when I think about like how we have to do this and how we're going to survive as sales reps, because, some people talk about us as a dying, dying animal, I was about to say, but because it's, the way we work doesn't work. So we need to change that. No, I honestly think this is amongst the only ways to do it, because we've tried we tried the emails and we tried the email spam thing that didn't work, and inbound doesn't work that well anymore. And then but it's that's the truth. We need to do something else to build that relationship. And so super interesting, and thank you for being my guests today. I hope we get a lot of, spring about from this recording, and hopefully people will connect with you. Please connect with Morgan and Nicholas. They got a lot of good insights and content on their profiles as well. And go ahead and ask some questions. They usually answer quick. That's word. Anyway.
Thank you.
My English is not super. It's too late. I need that beer probably.
You do. Thanks for having us. It was great to be here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, it was our pleasure. And it was super good knowledge for the Nordic market, I think, because we have so much to learn. That's how I feel about it, at least. And if anyone wonders now, this is recorded. And it will be on our website on demand if you have anyone that wants to watch it, or if you couldn't make it. And we'll also send this out to everyone who signed up. Again, check out these guys' podcasts, B2B Power Hour, and their LinkedIn shows. It's a lot of value in there. Okay, guys, thank you for today. And well, I will have a good evening, and you will have a beautiful day ahead. And please go eat breakfast now.
Yes,
on it.
You will need it. And honestly, I like your glasses. That was that ironic part. So
thank you.
You know, that was you said you can't read irony. So I will just stop that.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
That's
See
good.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.